Westbridge University's advanced theoretical physics course was notoriously brutal, taught by none other than Professor Dean Collins. Tall, grey-haired, and sharp-tongued, he took pride in breaking down his students' confidence to rebuild them stronger. On the first day of the semester, the massive lecture hall was filled with eager students, some excited, others already anxious. Among them sat Hannah Reed, a 22-year-old transfer student who had just moved from a small town in North Carolina. She was quiet, socially withdrawn, and often underestimated. Her oversized hoodie and silence made her invisible to most, but numbers had always been her language. Collins dove into the lecture like a performer on stage. Equations flowed across the whiteboard as students scrambled to take notes. Halfway through, he paused and smiled in a way that made many uneasy. "Let's have some fun," he said, turning to the board to scroll a massive, multivariable equation, dense, with abstract variables, complex integrals, and nonlinear dynamics. "This is the Thomson hypothesis, considered unsolvable. Not even MIT's brightest cracked it. Anyone?" A hush fell over the room. No hands rose, until hesitantly one did. From the back row, Hannah lifted her hand. A few students glanced at her, puzzled. Professor Collins arched an eyebrow, smirking. "You want to take a shot?" he asked. "All right, Miss Reed," she said softly. There was an awkward silence as she walked slowly to the front. "Don't worry," he said sarcastically. "Chalk is free." A few students chuckled. Hannah didn't respond. She stared at the board, chalk trembling in her hand. Collins leaned against the desk, arms crossed, waiting for her to crash and burn like so many others had. But she didn't. She took a breath, stepped closer, and started writing. At first, the symbols seemed erratic, but soon patterns emerged. Her process was meticulous, layered, and strangely elegant. 5 minutes passed. The laughter stopped. 10 minutes. The smirk on Collins's face faded. The class leaned in, stunned. Hannah moved from one end of the board to the other, transforming confusion into clarity. By the time she stepped back, the entire room was silent. "Done," she whispered. Collins approached the board, squinting. He read it once, twice, 3 times. No one dared speak. His face turned pale. "That's correct," he finally said, almost to himself. A ripple of disbelief spread through the room. Hannah didn't gloat. She returned to her seat quietly as whispers erupted behind her. After class, students surrounded her, trying to ask how she did it. She simply smiled and said, "I just saw the symmetry." Word of what happened spread quickly through campus. That night, someone uploaded a video clip to social media, Hannah at the board solving the impossible. Overnight, it gained thousands of views, but Hannah didn't care about attention. For her, it wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving to herself that she still belonged, even in a room that had laughed before she spoke. For the first time in years, she walked across campus with her head held high. The next morning, Hannah arrived early for class. She expected things to return to normal, maybe a few curious stares or awkward greetings. Instead, she walked into a classroom buzzing with energy. Students turned to look at her with newfound respect. Even Professor Collins nodded at her without a trace of sarcasm. "Ms. Reed, could I see you after class?" he asked as she sat down. Throughout the lecture, he kept glancing her way, often referencing her solution without saying her name aloud. For someone who rarely acknowledged students, it was a subtle but significant shift in tone. When class ended, Hannah stayed behind. As requested, Collins approached her with a quiet seriousness. "What you did yesterday," he began, "wasn't just a fluke. That solution showed a level of pattern recognition I haven't seen in years." Hannah simply nodded. She had no desire to boast. "I want to offer you a place in my independent research group," he continued. "You'd be the only undergraduate. It's a fast track to grad school if you're interested." Her heart raced. She never imagined she'd be seen as more than a number in the crowd, but here she was, finally being seen for her mind. Hannah accepted the offer. Within weeks, she was helping develop new models in quantum field theory alongside graduate students and postdocs. They were skeptical at first, but after one session where she found an error in a model that had stumped them for a month, their doubts vanished. Her quiet brilliance became impossible to ignore. Students began asking for her help outside of class. She became a reluctant mentor, guiding others not just in math, but in how to believe in themselves, something she had to learn the hard way. Her story eventually made its way to national academic circles. A prominent science journal interviewed her, calling her the silent genius of Westbridge. She hated the spotlight but appreciated the recognition, especially when she got emails from young women across the country who felt invisible in their classrooms. Hannah replied to every message, telling them what she'd learned, that sometimes you won't be taken seriously until you prove you're 10 times better than expected, but that doesn't mean you stop trying. She had once let fear keep her small, but now she knew better. Professor Collins, once her greatest skeptic, became her loudest supporter. At the end of the semester, he invited her to co-author a paper, an honor few undergraduates ever receive. Hannah still wore the same hoodie, still avoided crowds, and still walked with her head down sometimes. But now she knew where she was going. She had faced mockery and proven herself with grace, not revenge. Her story wasn't just about solving an equation, it was about rewriting her own value. And somewhere in that lecture hall, the next invisible girl was watching and beginning to believe she might matter too.